All right, everybody, happy Monday. I hope you're having a fantastic start to the week. And to get this week started, we actually have the OLS number 13 that we were able to cast this past weekend, which was lit. If you have not heard of the OLS, definitely join the Discord so that you know when the next tournament is going to go ahead and go up, because this tournament has gotten insanely popular over the last couple of months. It's awesome to see so much growth for this tournament, and honestly, it's always a ridiculously fun time. Shout out to the tournament organizer, Joe, doing an amazing job keeping the tournament running smoothly. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get into the first round where we're going to have Zekkion going up against Tio Kadu. So two people that we have not really been able to cast much of. This is one of the reasons why I do like the first round. A lot of the times we're able to get some, sneak peek at some up-and-comers in the Legends of Runeterra universe. So we'll see who is able to go ahead and start 1-0 here. This particular OLS, because there was a little bit more people than usual, the most actually ever for an OLS, is actually going to be 6 rounds of Swiss followed by a cut to top 8. So good stuff as far as that's concerned. We actually have 2 round 5s as well that we'll be able to get to. So make sure you subscribe, turn on the bell so you know when all the rounds go up over the course of this week. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into round 1 of OLS number 13, Zekkion versus Tio Kadu. Alright, what is up, everybody? This is Shit Just Works, as per usual, bringing you some tournament action, and it's just me right now. Hence the casted by Shit Just Works and The Missing Man. We are waiting for Boulevard for a little bit here, as he is currently casting the EU Masters on a recast right now. So that tournament, I believe, is about to get wrapped up here in just a second. And once that happens, I will I'll mute myself quickly. We'll go on and get Boulevard into the stream. But we are here for OLS number 13. 13, baby. And this is an action-packed one. I mean, we got a lot of people here so far that a lot of new faces. A lot of experienced tournament players, too, that haven't done the OLS previously. So good to have some faces in here. I know Cephalopod is in the tournament, as well as What Am I? Again, from last week, What Am I was in the tournament. And the OLS 12 winner is also here. So we got a lot of good faces in the tournament, and I'm excited for some awesome action today. To get started, we got Tio Kadu versus Zekkion, and it looks like we're going into a kind of a mirror match here. Or actually, never mind. There's a wild Katarina on the field. I don't know where that Katarina came from. I do believe that is main decked. So this is super interesting on the side of Tio Kadu. Good to see some new stuff. And so that means on the side of Zekkion, this is actually scouts. This looks like some sort of pirate aggro weird conjunction of stuff here. Definitely new to me. I have not seen this. I'm going to go ahead and try to get his deck list up real quick to see what this full deck list is on the side of Tio Kadu. So give me 1 second while I go ahead and do that for you guys, see what we're going with here. And as far as the full lineup is concerned as well, looks like on top of this Bilgewater Noxus, we do have Fiora Shen. We also have Diana Nocturne. And it looks like, I mean, Tio taking home the first game there, interestingly enough. So I do want to dig into this deck list real quick, as it's just super interesting. This is good stuff to see. So it looks like we got Katarina Misfortune. And I mean, beyond that, it's pretty much the usual pirate aggro, just with Katarina instead, which, I mean, hey, you get Blade's Edge, right? So Blade's Edge is going to be that additional damage to the face. It can also, I was going to say it procs things like Crimson Disciple, but rip Crimson Disciple, as that is no longer a thing. So super unfortunate there. But man, I'm kind of mad we got in a little bit late to not see that full deck go on and play there. But in game 2, we do have good old Diana Nocturne Nightfall aggro going up against this scout deck once again. So we'll see who's able to take game 2 here. With that said, I do believe we will be able to get Boulevard in here for just a second. So, first off, welcome everybody that just came from the recast that Boulevard was on, or the restream, I should say, of the EU Masters. And with that said, I'm going to go quiet for just 1 second as I go ahead and pull Boulevard on into the stream, so you guys can just keep watching the gameplay. Just give me 1 quick second. So I believe Boulevard, are you there? Can you hear me?
I am, and I can hear you.
Hey, all right, and hopefully everybody in chat can hear you as well. Man, you're on a roll today. This is great. You're going to be going from what, like 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. at this point, right?
So I actually woke up and they told me it was going to be 8 a.m. So we started early, which I found out when I woke up at 7:30. So didn't quite have a chance to grab breakfast or anything like that. But I'm excited to hop right into my next cast. This is the least downtime I've ever had in my life. It was I haven't even moved from my chair. So what are we looking at here for round number 1, SJW?
So this is actually pretty cool. So I was solo casting for just a bit there, and unfortunately didn't get to see the whole game. But on the side of Tio Kadu, if you pull up the deck lists, he's running Pirate aggro, but it's 3 Misfortune, 3 Katarina. So that is not a card I was expecting to see. But I mean, hey, Blade's Edge, right? It's 1 damage. So, I mean, I guess you can argue it in a Pirate aggro deck, but good to see Katarina finally see some play. So Tio Kadu actually did take home the win in that first game versus Zekkion here. And now we're seeing some Nightfall aggro versus good old Scouts and Boulevard. I gotta say, I did it. I resorted to using Scouts on ladder, and it feels so bad. I feel so dirty, but it works so good.
I've lost another one. Another caster brethren has fallen to the temptress misfortune. I cannot abide this out of my brethren. I need solidarity among the casters. Must I be the one to conform and go for the misfortune? I cannot deny the beauty of the blinding assault coming out of Zekkion. No misfortune to accompany her, but alas, that is the way the tides woe sometimes.
Wow, that was a lot of vocab there. Some old English vocab.
I mean,
it's just so good. You know, we were talking about this last tournament or last week when we were casting, and the idea that you can get Misfortune pretty consistently leveled on turn 5 now is pretty nuts. So on turn 3, let's say, you go in, you attack with a Valor and then a Misfortune. There's 2 attacks. The attack token goes to your opponent on 4, comes back to you on 5. And, oh, what do you know? Misfortune is leveled. It's absolutely redonkulous, and it works really well. But unfortunately, Zekkion, and I feel like Scouts usually does okay versus Pirate aggro, but losing that first game versus Pirate aggro here versus Tio.
Yeah, that's not going to feel great. And now we are queuing up Nightfall, which is, from my understanding, considered to be like the anti-aggro deck. I don't know that Scouts is considered enough of an aggro deck to sort of fall under that blanket of this is something that we beat every time. But it is looking really good for Tio here, especially because Zekkion doesn't have that Misfortune. That is a card that the Scouts feel a lot more reliant on actually needing to get these days. The Blinding Assault feels so mediocre if you don't have that.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, right? So in playing it a lot on ladder as well, Nightfall is not a guaranteed win. And I don't necessarily think it's one way or the other where one deck has a significant advantage, but especially if Diana is able to pick something off like a Misfortune or a Quinn or something, of that much value, then yeah, it definitely becomes hard for the Scout deck to win. With that said, we have a pretty decent sized field on the side of Zekkion. That is a humongous Bannerman there. That is amazing. And is a pretty good shot, too, with the Scout attack on top of all this, that we're going to get pretty close to lethal here because there's not a whole lot that Tio has in hand to really prevent this. It looks like we can trade a little favorably with these Pale Cascades, possibly, but looks like we're just going to try to get this Crescent Guardian down just to give us an additional blocker, or are we going to go with the elusive unit? I don't know. It's looking tough for Tio.
I mean, we can go with both of them. I am a little surprised to see things work out this way. I mean, yeah, we do have the Pale Cascade to go ahead and save whatever is getting challenged by the Valor, but if there is a second copy of Sharpsight coming out of Zekkion, that is going to be disastrous. The health buff on Pale Cascade isn't nothing. It does offer a little bit of protection, but not a lot. And it looks like we're just not even going to go for it. Is one of these a... Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. One of these is actually a Diana. And I am surprised to see it come down. Oh, never mind. That was post-combat. I thought that was just the scout attack. And I was like, wow, you're really just throwing that out there into a potential another challenger, huh? But no. Tio knows what he's doing. He's got that one all shored up. And now this is a problem that we see the Nightfall decks run into from time to time, where you just don't have a great activator. I think that Onlooker is sort of the weakest link out of this, just because that 4 attack doesn't mean much. It's going to get blocked. Yeah, it'll trade onto a unit, but you're really just trying to... I mean, do you just pass here and try to just rapid fire off Nightfall into an atrocity next turn?
That's really hard to pass here, because honestly, I think as Zekkion, you just take that. You head into your attack turn. Because as Zekkion, the scout player, you just want to attack. And getting that kind of free pass there from Tio would not, I think, be very good for Tio. We do see, like you said, we're using the Onlooker as the Nightfall activator. We got the elusive unit down. So this is where Diana starts to get value, like I mentioned earlier. If Diana is able to start picking off units pretty easily here, this is gonna swing heavily in Tio's favor. And honestly, I mean, you have things like Ranger's Resolve. Ranger's Resolve is not gonna help this Bright Steel Protector live versus this Diana. I mean, we're going to get the 2 damage through. And I think Tio, very smart here. Just, all right, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to slowly start to pick off units with Diana.
So not quite any card, but so the Pale Cascade does sort of do double duty on the Diana. It is going to give her +4 attack, and that'll put her up to 7. That is still just outside of the atrocity range, as we are going to need 9. And I mean, if we get something like, I think exactly Stalking Shadows off the top into another Nightfall card, because we need something to not only activate the Nightfall, but we need another Nightfall card to actually get the Diana up to the 9 attack. Looks like it's not going to be done this turn, but unless either we die or the Shadestalker dies, should be able to find lethal on the following turn.
Yeah, that's definitely a good possibility. And this Atrocity, not really being the best option right now for Tio. Kind of seeming a little bit dead in hand. Zekkion now going to be able to be the aggressor here, even getting the attack through with Quinn, which I imagine we Pale Cascade to kill this Quinn here. Doesn't feel great because you would have to really get value out of that. We're going to have to block with the Diana and Pale Cascade the Diana. But we're also not Nightfall activated right now, which feels really bad not getting that draw.
It's so tempting to save this Pale Cascade for the lethal on the following turn, though. I mean, is that something that you're willing to give up? Or are you going to try to take every line available to make sure that you don't die, or that you do have the win on the following turn? The Pale Cascade did play much better into something like Relentless Pursuit, giving you this additional blocker, but it would have certainly meant the death of your Diana. She wouldn't have had any additional protection for her when this Valor comes for her. And I think at this point on the side of Tio, you just have to concede that, yeah, I am dead to Relentless Pursuit.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I don't think... Is there a world that... I feel like every Scouts player plays through Relentless Pursuit now. Is there a world where Zekkion doesn't have Relentless Pursuit? I mean, we haven't seen any fired off this game. There's 6 mana open. There's probably a Relentless Pursuit in hand, right?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't bet against it. That's probably the best way to put it. I would not.
Oh, you're taking the neutral answer. Okay, I see what you're doing.
It's not quite neutral. It's a, I wouldn't put money on it, but. Ranger's Resolve. That is going to save the Grizzled Ranger, as well as a little bit of HP on the other units.
Yeah, and especially if you're only going to go ahead and save 1 unit with a Ranger's Resolve right now, that leads me to believe there is a Relentless Pursuit, but I mean, we'll see. There's still...
If there's not a Relentless Pursuit here, any 2-cost card in Tio's deck represents lethal.
Yeah. Oh,
and he finds a 3-mana 1.
Wow.
He finds a 3-mana 1.
So actually, crazy there's no Relentless Pursuit, but crazier that we did not draw a 2-cost card. That feels so bad.
I think that you might still have it on the side of Tio. I think that you might be able to push enough damage with the Crescent Guardian Overwhelm that, Atrocity onto a naked Diana is just lethal.
Yeah. Well, and is this kind of where we try to go for the whole, like, Diana Nightfall Atrocity thing? That very rarely happens, but when it does, it seems to work.
So, you are getting the additional 2 damage that you need for lethal out of this Crescent Guardian hit, but we're
Oh,
not
never
going
mind.
for it, actually. Yeah, this is surprising to me because the Crescent Guardian was representing 2 damage onto any of these units. Then you just Atrocity in the 7 attack Diana. Instead, we're going to pull this Quinn out of the way.
Okay, well, I guess it technically doesn't matter. I'm not sure what the more optimal play is, but this way, we still get 4 damage through, and you can still Atrocity the Crescent Guardian, or whatever's left over, essentially. Like, you can even Atrocity the Diana next turn, but it depends on how these blocks are lined up. So, yeah, now this Bannerman will actually kill the Crescent Guardian. Now you don't have that as an Atrocity target.
Yeah, and the Atrocity onto the Diana doesn't represent lethal. I think Zekkion had at least had an avenue for lethal here, but this one, you can still get bailed out by a top deck, you know, if you find another Diana or a Pale Cascade or anything along those lines, but your chances of success are so much less, and actually the Ranger's Resolve would have put your opponent out of range anyway. I just don't know that they would have gone for that if you didn't play this elusive unit.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, and that seems weird. I wonder if that was a throw on the side of Tio, because looking at how that resolved now, that was game right there. That was game. It doesn't seem like Zekkion had a way to kill this Diana. That would have just been lethal Atrocitying the Diana there. Now, we do have... Oh, no, that's still... Nocturne's not going to be enough either.
But we do survive the turn. We're going to have to Atrocity a blocker, but because Zekkion didn't go for the Scout attack, we do survive. And then... Is this Nocturne leveled?
So that's why I said, you know, maybe we have this Nocturne. I want to say yes, actually, because this is a Nightfall aggro deck. I'm used to playing Nocturne in decks where, like, he never levels, but...
I don't know if... So, if we're Atrocitying the Shadestalker, I want to say that the Nocturne is either leveled or will level on the attack, but the Sharp Sight is just lethal. That one not played around on the side of Tio. It just doesn't use the correct target for that specific answer, and now it is going to be Zekkion picking up a round 1 win here.
Wow, and that's crazy, because I really do think that Tio, you know, like you mentioned with that Atrocity and the Diana, we've mentioned this before with Nightfall, and I think it's kind of like the dream with Nightfall to get like a really big Diana with an Atrocity. It feels really good. It feels like you accomplished something, and we actually had it there. And we didn't pull the trigger on it, unfortunately. And it looks like that actually lost the game for Tio there. So that will tie the series up 1-1 going into game 3 here in round 1 of OLS number 13. And for anybody joining us, welcome to the stream. If you're new to OLS, well, what the hell took you so long to get to this tournament? And this is going to be 6 sweet rounds today, followed by a cut to top 8.
Was that not game 3?
No, that was game 2. It's all right, man. You listen, you just got here. You're a little late. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I misunderstood what was going on. I thought that was game 3. That's my bad, everybody. Instead, we are going to get... So we saw this list a little bit earlier today in EU Masters where it's Leona Aesol, but instead of a Demacia splash for Concerted Strike in single combat, instead they went for Ionia for, as far as I could tell, Deny was the only card put in.
Yeah, actually. It looks like you're right. Oh wait, so are you talking about the Leona Aurelian Soul deck on the side of Zekkion?
Yeah.
Well, no, there's 3 Deny, there's 1 Concussive Palm, 3 Will of Ionia, and 3 Tasty Faith Oak.
Oh my gosh, I forgot I have deck lists. I've been casting so many closed deck tournaments, I forgot there was a sheet available for me to... Oh my gosh, This is like Christmas Day.
And as always, anybody in chat, if you're looking for the brackets or the deck lists, just put the code. The codes are in the title too. It's decks or deck or whatever, deck lists, and then bracket or brackets, and you can pull that stuff up. But yeah, this is there's actually quite a lot of Ionia splashed here. We do have the full 3 Deny, so I'm interested to see if that's going to come in play here versus something like this Nightfall aggro. I mean, you can definitely, you know, you want to save that for things like the Atrocity. Otherwise, it's really not too good of Deny targets. The only other thing really is going to be Unspeakable Horror. And actually something to note too, in this Nightfall deck, there's 2 Shroud of Darkness. That is not a card we usually see in Nightfall aggro.
No, it is not, but I don't necessarily... I mean, it was definitely a card that feels like it was made for Nightfall aggro, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I remember, like, when that card first came out, I was like, oh, man, this feels really good. Like, we can win the game on, like, turn 4 with some Stygian Onlookers and a Nocturne. Like, we got this. I don't know. It felt like it underperformed a lot, mainly because the Spell Shield is only for the round. And the fact that that Spell Shield doesn't stick around, I mean, obviously that would be kind of a broken card if it did.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It really hurts because your opponent 9 times out of 10 will be able to play around that.
I think the only decks that we were really seeing it in was it was Tecton and Door for a while. And then people kind of had to concede that I can't play this in the same turn as Endure Atrocity, so I can never get that sort of, perfect hand of, I play my Endure with Spell Shield, you can't remove it, I attack, I Atrocity, I one-shot you, it's lethal. And we saw it a little bit in Deep. I have seen some players just really want to, make sure that the Nautilus survives the turn that he comes down to ensure that turn 8 pop off of a bunch of different sea monsters, but... Curious to see how it works out for Tio here. Zekkion's deck choice does confuse me a little bit. This Tasty Fae Folk I want to talk about here, where the Leona Aesol is a deck that I always felt was pretty favored against aggro when you're going for, not only the Targonian healing, but constantly getting these stuns off on your opponent. And I really didn't think that the early game, the slot that the Tasty Fae Folk fulfills was the weakness of the deck that we needed shored up.
I kind of agree with you. It was usually kind of like that late game win condition, which I feel like we've completely driven into the ground with this deck as far as a discussion topic.
At least this time we have Aurelion Soul, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It is strange to me that we're running. So first of all, we're not running Eclipse Dragon, which is an adaptation that I really like out of some of these players. Instead, we have gone for the Mind Splitter, but we're also running Dragon's Clutch to ensure that we find the Mind Splitter and the Aesol, but we're only running the 2 dragons.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned seeing 2 Dragon's Clutch with 4 dragons total in there, because most of the time I'm willing to bet the second Dragon's Clutch will either be completely useless in regards to that. I mean, sure, you can use it for the second effect of +1/+1, or it's only going to draw you 1 dragon, which feels kind of bad, not gonna lie, but I mean, we'll see. I am very curious. I got to agree, I don't think the Tasty Fae Folk is an amazing choice as far as what this deck needs shored up, but I will say that 4 power, all right,
4 power.
Aurelion Soul is a hell of a dude to level up now. He is not easy to level up at that 25 power. Tasty Fae Folk is a very cheap way to get 4 power onto the field, so that might be a consideration here with Tasty Fae Folk.
We'll just run Trifarian Glory Seeker, why don't you?
we're Irish all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, look, Team Ireland wasn't represented in the EU Masters, so I'm here to... I think I'm Irish. I'm a little Irish.
I'm Irish.
Probably.
I'm like half Irish, I think.
I'm a mutt.
Yeah, me too.
You cannot trace my lineage. My highest percentage of whiteness is like 11%.
Percentage? Did you just say percentage of whiteness?
Yeah, like any given country, the highest representation is like 11% in my bloodline.
Oh man, yeah. I think what is that? That's like everybody from America, right? We're all mutts over here for the most part.
No, I live in New Jersey. Everybody's Italian.
That is a good point. Everybody is Italian in Jersey. Everybody's Portuguese up here in like the Fall River, Massachusetts area. So
that is not what I would have expected.
No, nobody does. Trust me, nobody does. But it's a thing. But we are seeing the Ravoon get dropped down here from Zekkion, and we're seeing the Diana leveled up in return. So Nightfall aggro doing its thing here. We do have the leveled up Diana. We'll see if it's able to get some work done and actually pick off some units on the side of Zekkion's field. Unfortunately, Stalking Shadow is definitely a pretty good draw. We are going to need to get some additional Nightfall cards though, and there they are.
I think we have to go for the Lunari Priestess. This, the Onlooker, the Fearsome's not doing us any favors. The 4 damage doesn't even necessarily trade into Ravoon. I think it's a little bit better to just kind of squeak our way under our opponent, throw this Diana into the Tasty Fae Folk, and honestly, if there's a Will of Ionia sitting in Zekkion's hand, I think probably some of the most value that you were ever going to get out of it is actually denying this kill onto the Tasty Fae Folk going into the following turn. But I've been playing around with some Ionia decks lately. I'm playing on ladder, so it's a little bit different, but Will of Ionia has felt atrocious. Obviously, I haven't run into a lot of Field of Rush. That is the matchup that you're going to be looking for it in, but this is not a Field of Rush matchup either. You do not want Will of Ionia into a deck where the highest cost card is 3 mana.
Yeah, this is going to feel kind of bad on the side of TO as well, not really being able to push too much damage through here. The danger, too, is that you are keeping a Ravoon on the field. That doesn't feel too good. And also, what doesn't feel too good is playing this ephemeral copy here. This is probably one of the worst cards to get an ephemeral copy of with Stalking Shadows, which is why he probably considered the Stygian Onlooker when it came up, because that usually feels like the better ephemeral option, just because
I feel like that's the second worst ephemeral card in the deck.
What do you think the worst is?
I think Duskbringer is probably the worst.
Oh, and then Stygian Onlooker
probably the second worst.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would agree.
There are specific situations where you're like, yeah, let me throw down 3 Onlookers in a turn, and those feel great. But outside of those very specific turns, just any of these units that are not representing that much damage and not even necessarily threatening the lives of units, like Crescent Guardian would at least offer up a kill onto the Ravoon or a bit of damage thrown through the Tasty Fae Folk. The Duskbringer's not doing that. And now we actually are going to go for the kill onto the Ravoon rather than the Tasty Fey Folk, letting that one hang around.
Yeah, and so this was my initial consideration is, do we actually get rid of the Ravoon? Just because if you get something like a Leona to start hitting the field, not to mention, I mean, Ravoon is 5 power towards Aurelion Soul. Not that we're close to Aurelion Soul just yet, but that Daybreak ability with something like a leveled up Leona will shut you down more than a 4 power lifesteal Tasty Fey Folk will sometimes. So we are going to see the Will of Ionia, though. That card that doesn't really do much. You were just talking about getting a little bit of work done here. I do agree, man. This card has disappeared since it was a 4 mana initially, getting that changed to 5.
It's so wild to think about how many Ionia cards were like pretty good, and then they got 1 mana nerf, and now you just never see them anymore. And when they do pop up, it's like, oh my gosh, whatever happened to this? Steel Tempest is sort of the opposite, where it went from 3 to 2 mana. Felt like we were seeing it everywhere, but then as the Ionia PZ combo fell out of the format, it's just totally gone again.
I still like Yasuo.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yasuo Steel Tempest, so good. So Yasuo wrecks aggro decks. Should throw that out there. Not that Yasuo's ever played, ever, anywhere.
So what I'm hearing is that in order to win the caster tournament that we will eventually have, Yasuo is my key to victory against the massive scout field that I will be presented with.
Versus, yeah, I'll be that guy that just brings scouts and then 2 aggro decks. So yeah, Yasuo would probably wreck me.
Is this lethal?
With the
you
Nocturne.
Don't have the mana to play out your entire hand. The atrocity won't be on the table, but playing these 2 additional units will mean that the Ravoons are off the table as fearsome blockers. There's no board wipe in Zekkion's list. The one thing you do have to watch out for, Hush onto Nocturne.
There is no Hush.
That's absolutely.
That is
I went
insane.
to check the deck list as you said it. That's insane. I'm trying to figure out what his actual options are. Concussive Palm isn't going to do it, as enough Nightfall units have attacked. This Nocturne's already leveled. Okay, that'll do it.
Okay, Sunburst. Yeah, so there is 2 copies of Sunburst in the deck. That feels really bad. Ooh, do you ever consider... I was just going to say, do you Atrocity in response? I don't know if this still wins the game, though, because everything's going to lose Fearsome once this Nocturne leaves the field. You do have... Oh, okay, there's the deny. So, all right, well, I mean, we got the deny out, but I think that was kind of the turn that Tio needed to take home this game. That field on the side of Zekkion, including that Tasty Fey Folk, I think is just going to be a little bit too much for Tio to overcome here.
And I was surprised to see the Atrocity fired off onto the Nocturne. Like, yeah, it is a unit that's dying, but in terms of raw damage, I can eventually get my Diana a little bit bigger than that, even on this turn. And, maybe you had a shot at lethal between the Diana Atrocity as well as the follow Doom Beast, but that's all off the table. And, I mean, the Diana's going to live, but your opponent is still going to have double Ravoon, because I don't think you can leave this Tasty Fey Folk around at this point. If your opponent gains any amount of life when you are this low on cards, that is just going to be game over. But we're actually going to drag it with the Lunari Duskbringer and kill one of the Ravoons.
So, yeah, I mean, I know you kind of quickly said it there, but just for anybody watching... You're right. I mean, lethal was missed. There are no guiding touch in this deck. So if we had played that Doom Beast, or actually, was there mana for Atrocity? Because Atrocity was the last card to be played, right? On the side of Tio. Okay, never mind. So we were actually too short of lethal, because if we did play the Doom Beast on top of the Atrocity on a 9 attack Diana, that would have been plus the 2 damage on the elusive would have been the exact 13. But unfortunately, just barely missing that. So we didn't quite miss lethal, but it was very close. And I think this was kind of the same way the other game went, right? With this Nightfall. Like, Tio just coming up barely short of enough damage for lethal versus these decks. And that Star Shaping, that's going to make it even harder for Tio to come anywhere close to lethal anytime soon.
A couple months ago, the meta was littered with Targon decks, and Star Shaping was a big factor. We had Ramp Soul, we had Lux Soul. There's just so many Aurelion Soul decks, and these Star Shapings, nowadays they feel like a hindrance.
Yeah.
There are a lot of situations where you look at the Star Shaping and say, okay, if I draw the Star Shaping here, I live the turn. And then you stare down the 6 units that your opponent has to the 2 that you have and say, oh, I lived a turn, but
what does that do?
I'm still dead.
Yeah.
And we still haven't found the removal suites that we kind of expected to. I do think that Sunburst is a lot more popular now than it was, but that is a cosmic inspiration, and that means that Tio will never have an opportunity to take control of the board again.
Well, that's the win con, right? We've talked about this before. Cosmic Inspiration
Cosmic
is
Inspiration.
the win con. You just, as long as you just have to bank on getting Cosmic Inspiration every single time you play Leona, and you win. Then again, pretty sure anybody that gets Cosmic Inspiration just wins the game anyways if you get it off.
It does make it a lot easier to level your Aurelion Soul.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, especially because it does affect everything in the deck, the hand, the field. So, yeah, suddenly your Aurelion Soul doesn't seem like it was nerfed nearly as much as it actually was. And, yeah, I mean, Tio gonna go ahead. We have the Pale Cascade getting played here. Looks like we're setting it up for just to block something, possibly. This Doom Beast will also make it so that Tio does live for possibly another 2 turns, depending on how things turn out here. But, you know, again, we need a lot of work to be done on the side of Tio if we're going to actually put the game away here. There's no Cygnus, is there? There is one Cygnus being played in the deck. So a lot of times, too, you know, as much as this is kind of an aggro deck, right? Nightfall aggro. It is very much a combo-oriented deck as well. You know, we were talking earlier about using the Atrocity on Diana after she's buffed up. There is a very high chance that this deck is able to top deck well over a couple turns and eventually get the cards needed to just combo out 14 damage. Do I think that's going to happen in this particular game? It's not looking good, but you never know. A Cygnus plus an Atrocity, that could be a lot of damage.
And it feels like it's going to have to be exactly something along those lines. You know, get down. You know, we talk a lot about the Atrocity Diana, and Cygnus Diana does theoretically represent the same amount of damage because generally your opponent's not having an open board where you actually are going to get to hit them with that Diana. It is a little bit awkward that you can never get down Cygnus and Atrocity in the same turn unless you have a 1-mana activator on something like turn, 10 mana 3 spell. It's just not a realistic option. I don't think we've ever seen it happen. But I have to feel like Tio is just completely out of this game. It doesn't really matter that your opponent has elusives, or rather that you have elusives. Yeah, this Tasty Fey focus 6 life swing is backbreaking in a situation like this.
Yeah, Cosmic Inspiration, man, that's the card. That card, it just completely shut down this game.
And actually just playing a naked Lunari Priestess and this turns off half your deck when you do get down into top deck mode like this.
Tio might as well have hit the concede button there, throwing down that Lunari Shade Stalker. Just going to throw that out there. And, yeah, that's a big attack about to come in. And it looks like Zekkion is going to go ahead and be able to take game 1 here from Tio. Now, being that there are 6 rounds today, so for people that have watched some of the previous OLS tournaments, 1 loss by no means, I think, puts Tio out of the running for now cutting to top 8. So very much still has a chance to win out the rest of the day if that is the case. And I'm excited to see if Tio will be able to do just that. I mean, the lineup doesn't seem bad. And honestly, listen, anybody running a Katarina, you got my vote, okay? You got my vote to at least do well and make top cut. So Tio, hopefully you'll do well the rest of the day. All right, and Zekkion, gonna go ahead and take it there. Unfortunately, I was really pulling for Tio with the Katarina. I mean, when is the last time you saw a Katarina in a tournament deck? But Zekkion gonna go ahead and advance 1-0 there. So again, don't forget to turn on the bell. You know when everything else goes up. But as always, everybody stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. Peace out.